Attorney Julie Culver with my client, Mr. Ryan Prentice, who is beside me. I would just like to start by saying my client has a long history of sobriety. He has been working hard over the past 2 decades to turn himself around, do a 180, and be in a position where he is able to be a fantastic father, a fantastic husband, and a fantastic employee, but I will let him speak on his behalf to share that information.
All right, today we are going to watch pardon hearings out of the state of Connecticut. That means that these folks, they have prior felonies on their record and they want to have their record expunged. And what's interesting is that we are about to see one pardon hearing of a man who has SA in his record, and he wants to work with children as a coach. Let's see if they grant.
Okay, sir, please state your name.
Ryan Prentice.
Okay, do you want to give us a brief statement?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Good morning, all. I would like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity. I want to express my deepest regret and empathy for the pain that I caused to the victim. I will be sorry for the rest of my life for the horrible things that I did to her and her family. My actions were terrible and disgusting. A pardon will not excuse my crime, and I will live with this terrible action for the rest of my life as I should. I'm just asking for a chance to continue to grow and be able to fit into society as a father and provider. I have been clean and sober for over 17 years. I've grown a lot from the teenager that committed this crime. I realize how terrified the victim must have been, and for that I feel so much remorse. The best thing that ever happened to me was going to jail years back and getting away from the people that I loved and I thought loved me. I learned how to take responsibility for my actions. I have love in my heart instead of anger. I would give anything to take back the hurt and pain that I caused. I truly hope the victim has been able to find some sort of peace. I'm very sorry for the trauma that I put her and her family through. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Prentice, for your statement. So, as you indicated, you were 18 years old at the time. Serious offense, of course. So you were using at the time, right? Using drugs?
Yes, I was.
Okay. All right. And how have you maintained your sobriety for all of these years?
At first, I would just work. I'm so busy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, plus with all the programs, I was constantly talking about my drug addiction and how I ended up in trouble, and it always led back to discussions over drugs. So, and then the urines, and then after the programs, shortly after the programs, I enrolled in school, and then, you know, you have to be clean to drive big trucks.
Yeah.
So, and then I drove big trucks for 60 hours a week, every week. You know, I'd even be pulling up to probation in the big truck.
Yeah.
That helped, you know,
Okay.
always
All right.
working, keeping me out of trouble and stuff.
You did do treatment for problem sexual behavior for 2 years, it looks like, with Connection.
And a year in prison as well.
Yeah, and in prison. Okay, you did the program. Good. We received one of your reference letters from your probation officer, which we rarely see. So he spoke very highly of you and your compliance. Really recommended a pardon for you. So happy to see that you were able to turn it around and grow up really and stop using. Are you working now?
No, I'm at home with my son full time, but I manage the property and do vehicle maintenance as well for
Okay.
my family's vehicle.
Thank you. Ms. Berry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Prentice, you had a federal conviction in 2010?
Yes, I didn't know.
What was that sentence? What was the sentence? 72 months and you had 60 months of supervised release?
That sounds about right. I'm not exactly sure exact times of.
So that's so
2
if you were
months.
sentenced in, when were you released from the federal custody?
10 years ago.
Okay. Okay, 10 years ago. 2015?
2014, January 11th, if I'm not mistaken.
And when did you finish your supervision with them? That's
5 years after that, I believe, or 3 years after that.
from
I don't
2019.
know, I'm not sure if it was 3 years supervisor release or 5 years supervisor release. I thought it
It
was
was
three.
I have 60 months, I think.
Yeah, so it had to
5
be
years.
5 years. No,
Yeah, okay. And you didn't violate that at any time, no relapse, none of that.
no.
And that was a drug related offense where you were selling drugs to support
And,
your habit?
and using them as well.
Okay. All right. I just wanted some clarification. You really have done well over the years. I mean, your most recent conviction was that federal conviction, but they all seem to be related somehow. And you, yeah, I think that's all that I have. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're
Mr. Pohl?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Prentice, any supportive people in your life?
Yes, my wife, my wrestling coach, and the whole wrestling team I'm a part of.
Yep.
And my wife's family is very supportive.
Okay.
Well,
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's just important as we try to maintain recovery in the community to have people there that are supportive.
yeah, I just started teaching a class on Sundays at the school, at the wrestling school I'm referring to. It's Team Squared. So
Good.
I appreciate them and they appreciate me. So
Good. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the matter of Ryan Prentice, I'll move to grant an absolute pardon. Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Pohl?
Aye.
My vote is aye. The pardon is granted. Congratulations, sir.
thank you so much.
One more for Attorney Culliver.
All right. All I got to tell you is in Connecticut, they just clearly do not take pardons seriously. For one, it appeared to me that he tried to get the federal felony to pretend it never happened. It wasn't mentioned. I have a feeling it wasn't put in his application. He seemed totally surprised when it was brought up by the pardon board. And we have it. This was a sting operation that involved the FBI. He was locked up for a pretty hefty sentence of distributing, what was it up to? It was 300. They caught him with 324 grams of Pepsi Cola. There's a full document on the operation here with the FBI that Sir Richard found. And let's just keep in mind, I like pardons. I think it's important. But here's a man who, it seems, lied on his application. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And only finished probation in 2019, and you can just get a pardon. Not to mention, he has a third-degree sex offense when he was 18. They did not discuss what that was, but we know better. We have seen enough parole hearings to know that if you serve 3 years in prison in Connecticut and you're at the age of 18 when you committed the crime, you know it was bad. He was convicted on November 8th, 2004. He was released on August 10th, 2007. He served 3 years. And you have to assume that it was a plea deal. It was, now he was, I guess, it's just, it blows my mind. And then you find out that he's wrestling, teaching wrestling to kids. Wrestling, getting on the floor and rolling around with children, which I believe would be illegal. You realize that he kind of started talking at the end about that. I don't think that was part of his pitch. I don't know if his attorney knew that, but imagine when you're applying for a pardon and you have a sex offense that you served 3 years prison time for, that you only got out of prison in 2007. And then when you get out, you get busted by the FBI for distributing Pepsi. You serve a whole bunch of time for that. You only get released from your supervision 5 years ago. And meanwhile, you're wrestling with kids. Do you think the parents knew that? This is crazy. And then they grant an unemployed man who's volunteering on Sundays to wrestle with kids. And he's a sex offender and he's a distributor of Pepsi. That is crazy. I just cannot imagine that the parents know this. And this is just, if there's any moral of the story that we can get out of this, besides that the Connecticut Board of Pardons does not care about protecting their constituency, it's that as a parent, it is your obligation to do the research. You cannot rely on the government. You cannot rely on officials. You cannot rely on you cannot. It is your responsibility. If I knew that there was a man, my first thing as a father would be anyone who's getting on the floor and wrestling, like anyone who's coaching my kids, I'm going to do my research on them, because they better, they have to be special or perverted. I mean, or there's the other thing where they have their own child that they're coaching, and then that makes much more sense. But still, you still do your research. Anyways, we're going to watch another case where there is quite interesting, because it's something that Connecticut does care about. It's something that everybody cares about, but it's not kids. Let's see if their decision is different.
Good morning,
Morning, please state your name for the record.
Shanika Cave.
Thank you. If you have a short statement, you may proceed. Otherwise, the board will be glad to ask you questions.
I would like to start off saying that I do take full responsibility for everything I have committed. I have did a whole lot of growth. I have been committing myself to church every other Sunday. Not there all the way for every Sunday. But every other Sunday, I do attend church. I'm a full-time mom of 3, 1 special need. And, I try to keep myself out of trouble. I don't even try. I keep myself out of trouble. I work for a law firm, been there for the past couple of months, and I keep myself very, very busy.
Nice. All right, Ms. Cave. Let's see if we have questions. Mr. Paul? Oh, I think we have victim input in
We
this case,
do.
actually. All right, let's turn it over to the Office of Victim Services. Ms. Vasquez, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. I do have a statement from the victim that wishes for me to read on their behalf. And it reads like this. Good morning. I was the victim of a violent attack by Ms. Cave over 10 years ago, and to this day, I still think about it. I was left with lasting anxiety over continued retaliation, a reminder every year of the event as it happened on a special anniversary for my family, and physical injuries that took weeks to recover from. Knowing that there are multiple victims leads me to believe that she is habitually violent. Thus, from this information and my personal experience, I would not recommend clearing of her record. Thank you. This is all that I have for this particular case. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the victim input on this case. And certainly that's a long-lasting thing, as many of these offenses are, because they're victim related. I'll tell you, one of the offenses here that really concerns me is the cruelty to animals offense that occurred here.
Mhm.
I'd really like an honest explanation as to what happened here, because I really don't believe, I'm having a hard time believing what's in the application.
So I still have the email from the parties where I purchased I didn't even purchase them. I had got the dog from the young lady that the dog was definitely not doing too well. I agree of helping taking care of the dog. I still have the emails. I still have the photos of the dog from the time I received the dog. The dog were not doing healthy at all. The young man that I was speaking to at the time was trying to help us nature the dog back and forth. We were basically split it was like a kid to us. So we'll split custody with the other party. We'll let the dog go over. I took full responsibility from the dog, from the young lady, because the dog was left outside roaming the streets. Though she couldn't find the dog every other day when it was there with her. I moved into a home where they were infestation with mice. I have reports from the courthouse because I took her to court. I have proof that the house was infestation as well. The landlord came into the home, had put down mouse. They were baits, like a green little bait. We have left the cage open because the dog was basically home trained. We never had to worry about the dog using the restroom in our home. The dog was not doing well at the time that she put the traps, the baits down. So I'm not 100% sure if the dog got a hold to the baits. The dog was not eating anymore after over the time. We were bottle feeding the dog. We were trying everything under the sun to get the proper paperwork from the young lady for the dog, because she has gotten the dog from her husband when they were together. Don't know what happened with that. I have tried everything. I never had any bad things with animals. I always had owned animals. I had an animal. My parents have the animal now ever since this case, because I had to surrender my dog to either the animal shelter or I had to give it to someone else to care for. And I have a micro teacup Yorkie that I had from birth, and my parents still have the dogs now.
So, however, it's like the record reports, right? This isn't something that somebody said, right? Because often you find in a police report, somebody said something and who knows if that's accurate or not. But when somebody writes the conditions that are there, that they see, and it says that the cage was filled with layers of feces, urine, and other fluids. The mess also covered the floor surrounding it. It was reported that the cage didn't appear to have ever been cleaned, and the dog was observed to be extremely underweight, with his ribs, spine, cheekbones, hips, and other bones visibly protruding.
My house is very clean. I always keep a clean house. The dog cage was not filthy. The dog cage was never clean. The cage was always constantly clean. The facility that the dog slept in actually was pretty better living condition than we were living at that time. The dog had an open, I call it a sun porch. Some people probably call it a den. The dog had the whole den. It had the whole sun porch. It had anything that the dog needed. They wanted me to remove the dog. I couldn't remove the dog out the cage. So they felt like, because I kept calling and calling and calling and calling, I have called over 12 times for them to come remove the dog. And they said that was my responsibility. And I'm pretty sure that they got upset that I kept calling. And right before the dog passed, the dog probably did use the restroom in the cage, but the dog cage constantly stayed clean.
Wouldn't you take an animal like that to the vet?
When I received the dog from the lady, like I said, me and the young lady was basically split in the dog, because I agreed with her and her husband that, we will help with the dog. She was a friend to us at the time. I kept asking her for the paperwork for the dog. The young lady and the husband had multiple dogs. It wasn't just this dog. It was multiple dogs. We kept asking and asking and asking and asking. And she kept saying, I can't find it. I can't this, I can't that. And right before I got to the point where I'm not going to be rude about it, I was really, teed off. Come get your dog. Right before then, she was able to come get the dog. The dog had passed away. We've been begging. I have emails, text messages, and everything stating that I've been asking for her to give us the paperwork for this dog.
Do you currently have any animals?
No, sir, I don't. I only have the micro teacup Yorkie that I had from way before the incident occurred, and my mom has that dog.
So you have no other animals?
No,
Do you have
sir.
plans on having any animals?
No, sir.
I don't have anything further, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Poole. Ms. Cave, I'm concerned about this Walmart parking lot case. I mean, you basically beat up a stranger in a
So
Walmart parking lot.
I admit to me assaulting her, but also she assaulted me by spitting on me. When you following somebody from out the door, this is exactly what and I had two of my kids at the time because I didn't have a third child yet. She followed us out the door, like literally outside Walmart door, calling us your words, being very prerogative. And I'm like, all right, go about your business. You know, maybe she was having a bad day. It's normal for people to have bad days. She physically followed us all the way out the door, all the way to our car, blocked the car, like stood behind the car. And I got out the car. I'm like, do you know, just move. Like, why are you standing here? Why are you calling? She started a whole like crowd of like people just watching. And then she like spit from the bottom of her stomach. So then that's at that time, with my ignorancy of being so young and naive, I reacted to it. By you spitting on me, that triggered me to like, okay, now you just was totally disrespectful. Do I apologize? Absolutely. I do apologize. Did she attend court for me to apologize when they asked her? No, she did not.
But she's not required to. Why, Miss Cave, would someone be following you around Walmart calling you names?
I honestly, it wasn't in Walmart. We were coming outside the Walmart exit doors. We were not in Walmart at that time.
Why? Okay, even more so. Why would someone follow you around a parking lot calling you names?
I honestly do not remember the whole thing, but I know for sure we did not even cross more than 3 words before.
Well, the official version is that she was attempting to intervene when you were fighting with someone else because she was concerned about a child that was present.
No.
Have you read the police report?
I did read the police report, and it was never intervened with anything with a child. And
Well,
I
you just
never
said that
it
your
was
children
never,
were with you.
my children were with me, and I do not have do those type of behaviors in front of my children. I have 3 of them, 18, 15,
Well,
and
clearly
8.
you did because you beat this woman up in front of your children.
But at that time when I was young, and I just admitted to me by being young and naive and ignorant at that time, yes. Once we walked away from the whole argument. We walked into our vehicle with my mom. My mom was there, and also my sister-in-law were there. We are walking to our car. The argument was done. You followed and came behind us and kept going and going. We were already in our vehicle with our children. My kids were at that age 7 and 4 because they 3 years apart. 7 and 4.
If you were in your vehicle, you would have drove away, Ms. Cave.
She was behind the vehicle. I just stated that the first time when she was literally standing behind
All
the
right,
vehicle.
Ms. Berry, do you have any questions?
No.
All right, so let's see where we stand with this. We have a victim who's still suffering from anxiety over an attack. In my opinion, we have poor explanations today that do not match our official versions at all. I have some concerns. So, Mr. Pohl, where do you stand?
Perplexed. Because I absolutely do not like the animal cruelty offense. I'm comforted by the fact that Ms. Cave does not have any animals, nor does she have plans to have animals.
Well, yeah, I mean, that can change.
And
My son cannot have them.
And then we're going 13 years prior to get to the assault third. I mean, the problem here is the collateral consequences that go with this.
Mhm.
I would reluctantly support a pardon because of the collateral consequences.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would not, because for me, it's very important in these pardon hearings to see that an applicant is demonstrating significant change, taking responsibility for their actions, and showing remorse. And I see none of that. Ms. Berry.
I agree. you know, I mean, based on the crimes alone, it was a difficult ask, but and the response in the question and answer phase here today, that was even more concerning to me. So I would not support the pardon either.
All right, let's look at reasons for denial. The injury and impact to the victim. Minimize responsibility. And seriousness of offenses. Okay. Let's see. In the matter of Shanika Cave, I'll move to deny an absolute pardon for the following reasons. The injury and impact to the victim. You minimize responsibility for your actions. The seriousness of your offenses would be diminished by expungement of your criminal history. Ms. Berry? Aye. Mr. Pohl?
Aye.
My vote is aye. The pardon is denied. You can certainly reapply, but I would encourage you to get involved in some treatment and try to get
I
back
did
to your
attend
community.
treatment. I did
And-
attend treatment and everything that I was supposed to go to.
Okay, thank you.
I did complete everything.
Okay,
You're welcome.
Officer Dickey, we're all set.
Okay.
Wow, they actually got a denial, and Mike Pohl, even with all of that in front of him, he just couldn't help himself. He still had to grant. But for those of you who are not familiar, Mike Pohl, he does the parole hearings for Connecticut too. You might be familiar with his voice, although we don't always see it. It's just because the pardon hearings that we can see now the faces behind the voices of all those parole hearings that we've watched. And Mike Pohl, he grants everybody. I think we've had 1 or 2 denials, but it was interesting to see the disgust and the concern over the animal abuse, because how many hearings have we seen where it's little ones that are abused, babies, infants, toddlers, and he did not will not show the same concern for little ones as he did for animals. And I don't know what his deal is. We've gone through this before, and I'll only go another 30 seconds before I move off that subject, because it is a horse that I don't even want to say that. Right? This is the wrong timing. You get the point. He was a middle school teacher, a middle school history teacher for his entire career. He also has involvement in like the Connecticut version of like AA. You know, it's like a life passion of him. But that's his only qualifications for being a parole board member. And I had said this before. I think he probably was a gem of a middle school history teacher, a history middle school teacher that makes changes that everyone remembers and loves and adores and blah blah blah. You could tell he has that kind of kindness and empathy, but he is not cut out for this job. He does not have empathy for the victims. He does not have kindness for the victims. His concern is always the person who is up before him. And you even heard it here. He said the collateral consequences of granting or not granting, meaning his main concern is what will happen to her if we don't grant. Will it be harder for her to get a job? And that's their agenda. And I have to assume that the agenda comes from the top, from the governor. They want to hand out pardons. They look for reasons to hand out pardons, not for reasons not to hand out pardons, because they just want people to be able to move on in their state. And it's all, when it comes down to data, it's quite interesting. I asked my Chat GPT thing about Connecticut's population in prison, right? And how it compares to other states, like their incarceration rates. And it goes on to say that Connecticut has one of the lowest incarceration rate percentages across the next 9 states that it borders. And the reason is because of their progressive reform, right? And it goes on to and we know better. It's not, and they go on about the programs they have and the policies in place and how they're doing so great as a state. And then they will take these numbers and they will talk about these numbers and issue press releases and give themselves pat on the backs and maybe bonuses. I don't know how this works, about to say how Connecticut is a safe state and how their policies are working. But it's all manipulation of numbers. We see this through the parole hearings, that when they lock someone up, they lock them up for a short term. Then when they release them and they get revoked, they revoke them for a short term. Those revocations don't count in the books as someone being incarcerated. It counts as a punishment. They're not any safer. All they're doing is locking people up for shorter amount of times and releasing them back into the public, and then taking those numbers and saying, look, we have fewer people in prison. And it's all a lie. You know, you look at Louisiana, so Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate. Connecticut is 10% lower, and it's been dropping every year. But that doesn't mean crime is lower. It's simply how they handle the cases. The sentences are shorter. The revocations are not permanent. And the data, it's freakonomics, and it's messed up. And that's why it's so important. And don't even take my word for it. Everybody should understand data, and then understand who is taking the data and sharing it to us, because whoever pays for their research, they have an agenda, and that's what the numbers are going to tell. So even then, you have to take a step back and do your own research. That's enough. I'll get off of my high horse. My bottom line takeaway anyway, though, is that Paul was disgusted about the animals, but he still granted. He still wanted to grant. Good thing the other two, because that was a horrible hearing. Can you imagine showing up to a pardon hearing and lying and not taking accountability and being confrontational, and the language? And it was just, this is a pardon hearing. This is her on her best behavior. Think about that. Wow. Just wow. Anyways, they denied. That's what it takes for a denial. We can go into another one.
Hello,
There you go.
Yes, ma'am. Please state your name for the record.
Bobby Mann.
And do you have a short statement, or would you like the board to proceed with questions?
I would like to say a few words, please.
Okay.
First, I would like to thank the board for allowing me this opportunity. I also would like to take the time to express how sorry I am to the victim, to her family, all the pain I caused. I truly regret it. I relived that horrible mess I made of my life and theirs. Not only that, but when I saw my record, I couldn't believe what type of life I was living back then. I was misguided. I was young, doing a lot of reckless things with people I grew up who was in the same similar situation as me, growing up without a father, didn't know what a real man was, how he's supposed to carry himself. It took me a while to find myself, but I actually been working on myself. I've got my license. I never had a license. I've been keeping full employment for almost 9 years, with the exception of 3 or 4 months. I was let go from my previous job, but my union business rep actually got me the job where I'm at now, because he used to work there. I just work, come home. These last 2 years been kind of good for me. I've seen a little light of hope in myself in the future, because my son's mother actually allowed me to have contact with my son for the last 2.5 years. And just recently, she allowed me to talk to him direct. I don't have to go through her phone, call her to talk to him. She's starting to let us hang out. And I just want to continue that. I want to be the father that I never had. I just want to continue to do more. I want to make my mother and my family proud. I would like to put this horrible past behind me and actually have potentially a better career opportunities. If I could get this, also a better residency in a better neighborhood. I would love to have my son to come live with me, or at least stay weekends if we take it slow. I wanted to feel for joint custody of my son if I was blessed enough to have this. I have so many big plans to move on with my life in a good way. I've been working on myself, and I am truly remorseful, and I finally grew up and matured. I can honestly say that I take life much more seriously now. I'm about to be 50 in a couple of months, and I don't want this to be the end of me when I pass away. This what people would think of me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. So I took issue with some of your explanations in your application, sir. So for instance, for your sexual assault second conviction, your explanation is that you didn't ask for her age. Well, you're 34 years old and you don't know that you're dating a 15-year-old? I find that very hard to believe, sir.
Well, at that time, I was just only seeing her at night, and I was drinking a lot at that time. I was still going through some issues of losing my little sister and not having my son in my life because he was already born. It was just I was just going through some things in my life, and I was reckless. I was reckless. There's no excuse for it. I was
I
reckless.
can understand. You saying that you were reckless and making poor choices, I can understand. Telling me that at 34, you didn't ask for her age, so you had no idea how old she was, I will not accept.
Well, I I just didn't ask at that time because I didn't. I guess I guess I didn't care at the time. I guess I
Exactly.
didn't
That
care.
makes more sense. You didn't care. Right. And also, since you brought up the alcohol and drinking too much, there was some contradiction there too. You said you hardly ever drink anymore because it was an issue, but then you say that you never had a problems with drugs or alcohol. Sounds like it was a problem at one point.
No, I mean I drunk a lot back then, but
Right.
if I wanted to stop, I could. It wasn't like I had to have a drink. I just drank too much at the time, and I don't know. I don't have a drinking problem. I really don't. I did drink a lot back then, but
Mhm.
I could quit. I could have had quit at any time, but I was just lost mentally. I was lost.
All right. So how'd you get found?
Well, actually, once I started working and I've been employed for a good while, and I just wanted to do right, and I finally just came to my senses, and then I always been hoping and praying that I'll have a relationship with my son, and then 2.5 years ago, that I was blessed for the opportunity. His mother actually started letting us have contact with each other, and that just gave me hope to keep doing what I was doing. I've been trying to
Nice.
stay out of trouble, so
Okay.
I've been working on myself.
Okay. And you understand why the contact was stopped for that time, right? You weren't a good influence for anybody.
I wasn't, but I understand. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I told her I would never intentionally put my son in any danger. But I understand where
Yeah.
she had to make sure. I understand that. I accept the
Yeah.
mess I made of my life and others. I fully take responsibility for that. I'm ashamed of that. When I
Yeah.
saw my record, I'm still ashamed. It's something I have to carry with me, even if I was granted it. It's something
Right.
that it still haunts me. It still
Yeah.
haunts me.
Okay. One more question and then we'll move on from the offense. You violated your probation because you refused to report who your sexual partners were. Why?
Because at the time when I first had that probation officer, when I
Mhm.
sat down, she would talk down to me. She was very rude. So I knew at that time I was thinking that there would be no way I could talk to her logically and calmly. She would just I will violate you for anything. That's what she said to me. So when after a while, when I did started to have sexual contact with women, I told them about my fence like I was supposed to, or she told me to the PO, and she wanted to meet him. But the
Mhm.
young lady did not want to come down, and I couldn't force them. So I never told my probation officer because of the initial talk we had when I first met her. I knew
Yeah.
she would be hardball. So at that time, I still wasn't thinking clearly. I was just
Okay.
so upset of how my life was. I was almost gave up on life, honestly. I almost
Yeah.
gave up on life. So I never reported it, but I ended up reporting it at the X. I got tired of telling her that I wasn't
Yeah.
having sex. And it was almost a year. She knew I'm a grown man, I'm gonna have sex. So I
Right.
just told her because I wanted to get off my chest because I was tired of lying to her about not having sex. It was just the ladies did not feel comfortable coming down and I couldn't force them.
Okay. Understood. All right. So here's the good news, Mr. Man. It's been, 15, 16 years since your last conviction. You've done really well since then, working, reunited with your teenage son, staying out of trouble. So you found a way to turn it around. And we're happy to hear that, to see that. What do you do to give back? Do you volunteer at all anywhere?
Well, no, because I still feel when I go out, people automatically see me and think of my past history with my offense. So
Yeah.
I pretty much stay secluded. If I'm not working or doing errands, I'm home or I'm at my aunt, my father, and my cousin house. I really don't even enjoy going outside because of the madness. I feel safe at home.
Okay.
So I
Well,
stay
maybe we
home.
can help you out with that and you could get out there and volunteer and try to give back. Ms. Berry,
No questions. Thank you, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Pohl,
None, Madam Chair.
thank you. In the matter of Bobby Mann, I'll move to grant an absolute pardon. Ms. Berry,
Thank you.
Mr. Pohl,
Aye.
and my vote is aye. The pardon is granted. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next.
Here's the problem. Here's the really big problem with this is that you are showing up for a pardon hearing, and I guess we have Louisiana to hold side by side to understand what a pardon hearing would look like. And for him to show up and say, I didn't know how old she was. I had no idea. He's 34, 35 years old. She's 14, 15 years old. And he still shows up at his pardon hearing and says, I didn't know how old she was because I would only see her at night. And because I was drinking. And then the chair, Zach Ganini, says, I just can't buy that. I can't accept that. But then she grants. And it's like, dude, I want to grant you a pardon. If you're doing your things, I want to see it. But you got to do the first thing, which is stop making excuses. You want to be there for your son. You want to be a good role model, but you actually put in writing in your application to have a pardon that you didn't know how old she was. That's 35 and 14. That's sick stuff. This is Chris Hansen style stuff. Would you want to see someone who gets busted in a Chris Hansen sting to get a pardon? After then, they make some mumbling excuses, but this is worse than Chris Hansen. This was going on for a long time. In 2009, he gets charged with second-degree sexual assault. In 2010, he's found guilty. He's given a sentence of 10 years, suspended after 3, with 10 years probation. So he serves 3 years in prison, is my understanding. He gets out. And that year, December 5th, 2013, he violates his probation. For what we heard about, how he makes up an excuse that it's his probation officer's fault. It was all her fault. He didn't want to do this. It's like all the trademarks of antisocial behavior. And I don't know how much more prison time he served for that after that probation, what it was, how maybe it was just a technical, maybe you got one back for a little bit. We see these revocation hearings all the time. And so now it's 2013. So it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years since violating probation and he gets a pardon. But how do you feel about that? I don't know, man. It's my opinion that you gotta own it, and to actually see I didn't know, that's just crazy. That's just my opinion. That's my 2 cents. Wow.
Do you have a short statement for the board, or would you like them to start their questions?
Yes, I have a short statement. I would like to say thank you for this opportunity to, for the board. I was awarded the state as far as like being in foster care at Children's Village. I got taken away from my mom. They got 10 or 11. Been pushed around from different foster homes, group homes. Didn't really know my moms that well. Didn't know my dad that well. Was homeless after I got kicked out of the system. Then I met my wife. 18 years married now. We have 9 children together, 9 kids. One on the way. My oldest daughter's 18. The youngest one right now is 2 years old. I don't really affiliate with a lot of people. I graduated from anger management class. I'm from New York. Um,
You ready for our
Yes.
questions? We're ready to
Yes.
ask questions. Thank you. Ms.
Yes.
Berry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. McGeechee, I heard you say you participated in anger management and you are, and your wife are still having children. How do you discipline your children now when they are out of line?
Oh, it's totally different now. So basically, they have laptops and certain stuff that they like to play with. So the minute they get out of hand, they don't get their snacks. They don't get certain free times. It's either they go in a room, they read a book, or they help each other out to clean up as far as like clean up around the house. So basically, they have to earn stuff now. So when they act out, they don't get special privileges and stuff like that.
Okay. And so, no other, I mean, I understand it's a cultural thing, but no longer do they get beat with anything, um,
Nah,
for being disobedient or, okay, and you gave up your parental rights to this victim?
yes.
And so do you know how she's doing or any idea what's going on with her?
No,
Wow. No contact with the mother either. I'm assuming it's a different mom.
no, it's the same mother.
Same mother. Does your wife speak to her?
No,
Wow. Wow.
it was basically she has really bad mental health issues.
Hmm.
So when the last time I spoke to the worker, she said that it's up to her if she wants to reach out, or it's up to her attorney if they want to allow her to reach out to her siblings. But as far as with that, she's last time I heard she's doing really good in school.
Sure. How old is she
She's
now?
she's 18.
Wow. Okay. And I heard you say your wife is pregnant. Is your wife working?
No, my wife has scoliosis.
Okay.
She has a crooked spine.
Okay. Yeah. And are you working?
Not at the moment right now. I'm in between like side jobs because I do security. I have my security license,
Okay.
so I do security work.
So how
So
do you support 9 kids?
we get help from the state, like
Wow.
food stamps and stuff like that. Medicaid.
Wow. So, I mean, okay. I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Paul?
I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
All right, so here's my concern, Mr. McGeechee. In your application, you say the information on your application was submitted incorrectly by the preparer. Who prepared your application, sir?
Oh, it was a pastor from Waterbury, Rashawn
Okay.
Dunbar.
Okay, but you signed off on it, right? So you should have read it. And you say that you deny ever hitting your daughter, and the victim lied to DCF, and that the bruises were
That was
caused by a cat.
Oh no, that was a mistake. That was a mistake.
What was the
It
mistake?
was it was a mistake on my part by me saying that. I shouldn't have said that.
So
So
the
basically,
officer here called you and said,
yes.
"This is what your application says," and you say, "No, that's not true. That the
No, the
pastor
first
messed up my
the
application."
no, the first situation as far as it was with the cat, but the second situation is where when she grabbed the cat by the throat, that's when, how can I say, like when you discipline her, like discipline a child, I discipline her, but the wrong way.
How did you discipline her?
It was with a little, what do you call that? A string wire from the jacket.
Okay, so the official version says that she touched your computer, so you hit her with the computer cord.
No, it wasn't a computer board. It was an extension. It was like the thick plastic thing from the jacket, from the pants. You know how when you have like the sweatpants on, and sometimes they have like the little cloth, and then they have like the plastics. It's like a really thick plastic, but it's a string that goes around your waist.
So you took the string out of a pair of sweatpants to hit her with it?
No,
I'm
it was already out of the sweatpants because I was kind
Okay.
of using that to hold up my weights because I work out. So I kind of use that.
And that left bruises on her?
Yeah, because it's plastic. It's a really thick plastic.
Uh-huh.
It's like a wiring
Your
plat.
rights were
It's like,
your rights were terminated. That's why you have no contact now, right?
no, we gave up. It says they was terminated, but we gave up our parental rights.
Well, regardless, your rights were
Yes,
terminated. I don't care how it
yes,
happened.
yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so, all right. I mean, I'm concerned. There's some inconsistencies here. You have all these other kids that you need to take care of. Did you go through a parenting program?
I went through anger management.
Did you go through a parenting program?
The parenting program I went through was, I think it was with CCA in Waterbury, and then it branches off to anger management.
How long was the parenting portion of that?
30 days, 30 or 60 days.
Okay. Because our records indicate there have been quite a few referrals to the Department of Children and Families regarding your children.
It was basically my daughter.
Not basically, I mean, you know, there were reports from the other kids too. So, I mean, I guess, how do you abuse one and not the others?
Yeah, I understand.
Well, that's a question. How do you abuse one and not the others?
Well, I was basically taking stuff from them too. I take like they toys away. I won't allow them to go to their friend's house.
That's not
When
what
we
you're asking, sir.
Yeah, that's not
Huh?
abuse. That's not abuse. I mean, I would say that's
screaming,
that's
screaming and
appropriate discipline.
screaming and yelling at them. Having them stand in the corners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People.
How old is your youngest now?
Dada is 2.
Okay.
You just said he said 3, but go ahead.
And
Sorry.
the
Yeah,
oldest, the oldest was,
he's 2. He's born July 4th.
all right, how old are the other ones?
Zaire, I think Zaire is okay. Anissa is 14, Zaire is 13. Nefertari is, I think she's 11. Naya and Tahira, I think they're 2 years apart. 4, 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. And that
Yes.
can't be easy to care for all those kids, to discipline all those kids. It can't be.
Yeah. There's a program that we attend to. It's called New Opportunity.
Yeah.
And we're affiliated with them, with Olivia. I forgot her name. It's Olivia something, but she comes frequently over to the house. She
Okay.
talks with us.
Okay.
She's like a family advocate. She talks to the
Yeah.
kids and stuff like that. She suggests like certain stuff that, okay, when the boys get out of hand, it's best to do this. When the girls
Yeah.
get out of hand, it's best to do this. Even if we have to call her, we'll call her
Yeah.
to ask for advice.
So are you still receiving services from the Department of Children and Families?
No, not as of yet. No,
What do you mean
we
as of
was,
yet?
but we
Okay,
was not as of yet.
when was your latest case closed?
As far as with my daughter,
No, any.
on the 6th.
On the 6th of January?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's see. Did I already go through everybody? I did, right? Okay, what are your thoughts, Ms. Berry?
This is a lot. I mean, there's so many children already, and you're still having more children, and disciplining them and still being involved with DCF and not working and both at home. Like, it's concerning. It's a lot. While I would like to support Mr. McGeechee's request for a pardon here today, I'm just concerned that the behavior may still be occurring. I'll hear what you all two think. At this point, I am undecided.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be a little too soon myself. I think continued services are probably in order here. Yeah, it's a lot of kids, and I would hate to fail anyone in this family. Mr. Paul, what are your thoughts?
So it concerns me that Well, it concerns me the latest case was just closed on the 6th. The arrest on this was going on 8 years ago.
Right.
Trying to is there a reason to keep this one offense on his record when DCF will have this anyway? I just don't know. I'd be really interested in what the chair has to say.
I mean, I don't know. And I don't know their expungement process. You know, it's been years since I've been involved with them. So
I don't think that there is an expungement
There
process
is.
because it's an administrative.
no, there is an expungement
There is.
process with DCF. Yeah. Yep. I think it might be important to revisit this at a later date.
I agree, Mr. McGeechee. I mean, honestly, you can reapply when things are a little more, you know,
Stable.
secure, like things,
Right.
solid plan. It's all over the place right now. I think he still have a little bit more work to do. So it doesn't negate the good work that he's already done. He's remained out.
No.
I do appreciate his honesty and his candidness.
Yeah.
However, I still think that there's a higher the level that of change that we are expecting to see when we're granting these pardons it's just not met right now.
Yeah. All right. In the matter of James McGeechee, I'll move to deny an absolute pardon at this time because the seriousness of your offense would be diminished by expungement of your criminal history. Ms. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Pohl?
Aye.
My vote is aye. The pardon is denied, but we would encourage you to keep working on your parenting, get involved with community programs, and reapply in the future, okay? We wish you the best, sir.
God, thank God they denied. Can you imagine? Do you hear what Mike Pohl said? One of the cases that he has only closed on the 6th. This hearing took place January 8th. So he shows up for a pardon hearing 2 days after a case closes, and they would have probably granted. And that's scary. I got super scary energy vibes out of this. Wow. Beating your daughter, blaming it on a cat. Just take a step back and think about what it takes for a fully grown adult to tell someone that it was a cat that caused the bruises on your daughter. And all I can think is these poor children. How do you have DCF take one child away, but not everyone else? It is a weird stuff going on here, and I just don't understand it. I mean, really, if you're going to lose one child, if that's my understanding, maybe I missed it. Wouldn't they take all your children? And I guess that's what was it Zaccanini was trying to get at, which is like, well, are you just picking on one child, which you see all the time. There are parents pick on state. We see it all the time in true crime. But I know DCF has a really hard job. But if I was DCF, this does not call for a pardon. On the contrary, this calls for a serious investigation. Imagine this just being out and about for all of us to see and for what might be happening behind closed doors. I don't know. It scared the hell out of me. We're going to see one more hearing, which is very unique. And Sir Richard has a lot of information on this one. So I will share it with you at the end, and it will help fill in some of the blind spots. Let's go.
Thank you. Do you have a short statement?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
All right. Good afternoon, members of the Pardon Board. Today I stand before you to humbly request a pardon for my conviction of assault with a motor vehicle and a DUI, a decision I deeply regret and have paid dearly for. Since that time, I have dedicated myself to preventing these actions from ever happening again in my life and others. Sharing my experiences with hundreds of classrooms has humbled me and has given me a purpose. This has also empowered me to work on the key reasons for my alcoholism. demonstrating a sincere commitment to my rehabilitation and positive change in my life. I believe that granting me a pardon would allow me to fully reintegrate into society and contribute meaningfully to my family and community. During this time, I've successfully completed a 5-year apprenticeship to become a plumber, and am now a foreman on the job I currently am on. Every day is still a struggle from my injury, though, because of my choice to drink and drive that one night. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, to be able to just stand in front of you.
Thank you, Mr. Tapp. Okay, we have victim input in this case, so we're going to turn it over to the Office of Victim Services. Thank you, Ms. Vasquez, for your patience.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I do have several victims who are on this call right now, and all of them would like to address the board. This will be your opportunity to unmute yourself. You can turn on your camera if you wish to do so, and you can begin. The order that we came, that we all agreed, victim FM, if you can speak, that'll be great. And then we'll have KC, and then we will have one of the MAD advocates speak on behalf of another victim. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Felicity Moeller Ellis. It's been a lot of years, 17, since we were struck by Ryan Tapp driving 80 miles per hour after making a U-turn in 84 on New Year's Eve. I was the driver. I was the sober driver, and my friends were visiting me from DC, and I still live with guilt today for this, even though I didn't perpetrate the crime, because I was responsible for getting us home safely. And I've spoken so many times to victim impact panels. And I have to say one thing that just continues to kind of trip me up in this situation is the lack of a sincere apology to us. The lack of acknowledgement of the damage that he caused to our lives that is continuing us with us still today. I speak at victim impact panels, which I imagine the board members know are full of people who've committed DUIs. They apologized to me afterwards, but I haven't had an apology from mine. And this is not part of my prepared words, but it really strikes me, particularly since this is his second time coming before the board, requesting an absolute pardon, which would completely erase his offense. And I am encouraged hearing that he speaks to hundreds of classrooms. And I am encouraged that he acknowledges alcoholism, because I think that really, problem drinking is something that's so under reported, right? I'm a social worker. I know these things, right? I have a natural inclination toward mercy. But I also deeply understand that forgiveness is given freely, truly between two people, when one acknowledges the severity of the harm and does so to that person who they offended. And we were 30-year-old women who had the right to an assumption of safety and security as we moved about in the world. And my friends and I are now like 47, right? And Ryan's now a legal person. At the time of his crime, he was not. And I wish him so well in his life. But at the last pardon hearing, we asked, could we have a restorative justice conversation? He acknowledged that through his attorney that he'd be open to that. As victims, we reached out to his attorney and we received no answer. We're not going to chase him for that apology. But that is what we asked for. It's a fairly simple request to have a conversation. I know the board has heard some serious crimes, but the seriousness of the crime is not diminished by time, in the sense that in order for it to truly be absolved, there has to be true atonement to the victims. And I think that, you know, why focusing on the apology so much? You know, our efforts in our own lives to live um, good lives and move forward and forgive and deal with the trauma, the injuries, those are all things that we would never have had to invest if it weren't for this crime. And really, an apology is all we can get, right? You know, an underage young man hit us and rolled over the top of our car 80 miles an hour. He nearly killed all of us. We all have lasting injuries. There's no way to get back this part of my thumb. And while that may not seem significant, it's my dominant hand. It's changed my functioning. Things that I do every day dramatically. I had significant scarring to my face at 30 years old, unmarried. I'm like thinking to myself, well, my face is going to look like this forever. You know, these are really, and just the way that you see yourself after all these things happen, right? After your body is irrevocably changed by somebody who chose not to stay safe and chose to put others in harm's way. And it's really unclear to me that he ever grasped what he did to not only the three of us in my car, but to another woman in another car, and to all of our family members and friends who had to live through all of this with us. So I think an absolute pardon is not something I'm comfortable with without an apology. And a certificate of employability is something I think that we'd be comfortable with. We said this last time, and I'm saying it again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Coventry. I have kind of a written statement, but I also just may add a little bit. I'm speaking today because Ryan Tapp, who injured my friends and I, is requesting a pardon, meaning this crime is removed from his record. Given the information I have at the drafting of the statement, and also what I just heard, I strongly ask you to deny this pardon request. This may seem really strange to people who've looked at this case, because at the time, we actually asked the judge to not send Ryan Tapp to prison. He had suffered from a brain injury. We were worried about his safety in prison. And the two of us who just spoke, and the one person who Matt is going to read their statement, we all came together and said, this is not the punishment that we want for him. The judge did not listen, did sentence him to prison. But I just want to be clear that we have considered forgiveness from the time when it was so difficult to give to now. And again, I hear his statement and I hear no acknowledgement of the damage he did to other people. Like, I feel like if you asked him, he couldn't even say what happened to me. And that's all we're asking for, is a recognition of what he did and an apology. And just so this board is clear, I ended up not being able to finish my PhD. I was out of work for nearly 4 years, or only able to work part-time. And I incurred a significant amount of debt because he was underinsured. And it feels like because we didn't die, it doesn't matter, that it's been really not acknowledged. And maybe those things aren't important to him or his family, but they were very important to us and our families. And so I'm just going to ask for the same thing we asked the last time when we were here before this board, which is to ask for a restorative justice process where he can acknowledge what he did and ask for the forgiveness that he wants, but I cannot give without him being fully aware of what he did. Thank you for considering my views and the views of the other victims of this crime.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak at the hearing of Ryan Tapp, the drunk driver who nearly killed my two friends and me in 2018 on our way home the night of New Year's Eve. I am unable to be at this hearing, which I learned just learned of 2 weeks ago because I am out of the country. As such, I am grateful that a victim representative is available to read my statement on my behalf. My understanding is that he is requesting that his crime be removed from his permanent record. Given the information I have, I strongly ask you to deny this pardon request. As you are aware, Mr. Tapp requested a pardon before back in October of 2017, yet our concerns remain and have yet to be addressed. Does he understand how his reckless actions continue to affect the lives of his victims? That our lives have been permanently altered for the worse as a direct result of his choices. You are hearing from my friends and fellow victims today, so I won't speak to their personal traumas, but wanted to share a few specific incidences of how the preventable crash in 2008 still affects me. First, the damage to the vision in my right eye will never heal. There remains a large blank area in the middle of my field of vision that will always be present. This translates to a much higher and thus much more expensive vision prescription to be able to see clearly during the day, but a significantly reduced ability to see at night. Second, I am still nervous being in a car at night and avoid driving myself except in emergencies. And finally, I worry all the time that people I care about have been injured or killed by drunk drivers. I doubt Mr. Tapp has any inkling what it must feel like to be anxious about friends, families, or students who haven't arrived within a reasonable amount of time to a planned gathering, especially in the evening. I do all the time. Statistically, drunk drivers are rarely one-time offenders, though they are not always caught. We requested clemency for Mr. Tapp at the original hearing, not wanting to destroy his life in spite of his damage to ours, but it is crucial for this near fatal offense to remain on his permanent record as a reminder of what poor choices he made, and ensure that if he makes a similar choice in the future, that the penalty will be fittingly severe. Thank you for your consideration. Chief Sam Vincent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the victims who spoke. This is all that I have for this particular case.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for your statements and participation. Ms. Berry.
Madam Chair, I do not have any questions. It seems to me that these victims have extended great courtesy to Mr. Tapp, and they're really nothing is going to ever change this from happening. I think that Mr. Tapp is making strides in terms of his rehabilitation, but I am going to support the victims on this and deny his pardon today.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl.
Madam Chair, I know this is not conventional. Is there a way to move this case to a future docket and allow Mr. Tapp to try to do what was asked of him at the last meeting and engage
Let's ask him, Mr. Tapp.
some type of restorative justice?
Yeah, let's ask him. Any efforts been made towards that goal?
Yes, ma'am. I asked my lawyer last time if I could just talk to the victims, and he told me not to. He told me not to say anything. He didn't tell me anything about them wanting an apology. I have only wanted to say an apology to the point where I wrote them all Facebook messages, almost tempting to send it to them. So many. This has killed me, how I impacted other people's lives like this. And it destroys me, the fact that I stopped someone's life. I caused this much damage, and I have almost put a bullet in my head because of it.
So you tried to set up a meeting or to speak with the victims, and your attorney advised against it?
Yes, ma'am. And it kills me to know that that's all they wanted to hear, because it was the hardest thing to be able to forgive myself. I have been craving and needing their forgiveness, or just wanting them to know how sorry I really am, and how I don't sleep at night because of something I did 17 years ago. Reasons why I talk to other classes, or reasons why I teach my son all this now.
How old is your son now?
He is 3.
Okay, you have 2 children, right?
I have a daughter that's turning 2 next,
Okay.
and my son's turning 4 in March.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mentioned the classrooms that you go in and speak to. How is that organized?
That was organized through Think First at a Gaylord Hospital. It was about brain injuries and traumatic brain injuries, and I always basically talked about my trouble with alcohol and how my decision stopped not just my life, but everyone else's life. That drinking and driving is the most selfish act you could ever do, because it doesn't matter about your life. It's whose life you're affecting.
Mm-hmm. And you were how old at the time of this offense?
20.
20 years old. Okay. And in the Marine Corps?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just shipped to Iraq.
Yeah. All right. Tell us how over these years you've maintained your sobriety.
Through Celebrate Recovery out of Victory Church, which is a Christ-centered AA for any hurt, habit, and hang up, which I've helped run for close to 15 years. But since my son was born, I stopped just because I can't leave my wife alone with a toddler. I feel bad.
Okay.
I've done, oh my gosh, 3-step groups.
Mm-hmm. When is the last time you had a drink?
June 20th of 10 years ago. So I'm on my 11th year, going to be the 11th on June 20th.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this is a very, very difficult case. So much damage.
Yes, ma'am.
To so many people, including yourself. So do you have lasting, I know you were injured as a result and in a coma.
Yes,
and,
ma'am.
Yes. So what effects have you suffered that are lasting?
I get really bad headaches all the time. I get temporary loss of I'm unable to remember everything as well. I have a tremor in my knee that goes off all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have nerve damage in my shoulder. It's really the brain. It's just the memory
Mm-hmm.
is the biggest.
Were you made aware of all of the injuries and losses that your victims suffered as a result of your crime?
I wasn't made aware until I researched it myself after I had a newspaper article written about me. And I heard the last time I went to apply for this, she said something in the courtroom and I had no idea. I had no idea of whatever they went through there. So I had to research it myself. So I know of the lost vision in the eye. I know of Felicity's face and her other damages, the loss of part of a thumb. I know of Ipney. I know of Kate. And
What about the 4th victim? Do we know anything about the 4th victim?
I do not. I just know I think I rolled over her car. I don't know for fact.
Okay. Does anyone have further questioning? Ms. Berry or Mr. Pohl?
I mean, Madam Chair, I would like to, I've heard the victims and
Right.
I've heard the grace that's there.
Yeah.
And I know that with Mr. Tapp's young children,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to be a part of their growing up and, schooling and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that, anytime a parent wants to be involved with their child's activities at school and things like that, that
Yeah.
their background is run. And if there's a case like this that pops up, he's not going to be able to. And where he lives, I know that that's an incredibly responsible school district that would block something like that, and I hear everything, and there's no fixing, and I think Mr. Tapp knows that, but also, I want the victims to be able to get what they need as
Right.
well.
I don't know how we facilitate that. I really don't.
Can I take them to coffee? I mean, I want to talk with them. I want to talk with
Yeah.
them. I want to say to them in person, I am sorry. Because the last time I tried to, my lawyer told me, no, don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what an attorney would tell
Yeah,
somebody.
of course. Yeah, that's their job. Yeah. Ms. Berry?
It appears that the victim wants to.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah. Our advocate who was with us through all of the court processes, Jen, is on the call still. And she read for IPTI. I don't know, Jen, if Matt ever facilitates anything like that. Not to put you on the spot, but
No, that's fine. We've been a part of the process. The time that we have done it, it was while they were still incarcerated.
Right.
But we can certainly talk after this and certainly facilitate some things even through our office as a neutral place, or somewhere else that's a neutral place. We would be happy to talk more about it.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Paul, you propose continuing the case
I do.
for some time and then hope to get a report sent to us from someone, because I don't believe we would do victim outreach again. But we would, of course, want to hear about it. All right. So in the matter of Ryan, are you okay with that, Ms. Berry?
No, I'm not, Madam Chair. I
Okay.
really feel like, Mr. Tapp, while I can appreciate his efforts and all that he's doing in the community, I think that it was clearly stated at his last hearing what needed to be done. I understand also about the advisement of his attorney. However, in my opinion, it would seem to me, I wasn't part of any of that, but to
Yeah.
me, it would seem as if he's doing this now in order to have his pardon erased. And I mean, it's almost insincere in a way. So honestly, I just believe that denying him today, giving him an opportunity over the next year, he can reapply in a year. I mean, I continuing it, to me, I appreciate all the difficulties that he has had to encounter as a result of his decision at that very young age. However, that does not negate the severity of this crime. In one
Right.
more year to rectify things, that's it, by the grace of their victims, is not going to make a tremendous amount of difference.
Well, but I don't see his efforts as insincere. I believe him when he says that he wanted to apologize before now. I believe that he has shown remorse. And I really don't see the need to bring all of the victims back in a year to rehash all of this.
But
Nothing can be accomplished before then.
But one of the victims saying that regardless what so two of the victims that spoke, but the one where the victim advocate read the statement said that she did not want his pardon in the statement. So it's not, I mean, I understand all of what they're saying, the two of them, but there's still other people and their position may be different. These people their lives have been altered for the rest of their lives. And for Mr. Tapp to be inconvenienced for another year or two, in my opinion, is hamburgers and hot dogs, I guess, two different things. So he has plenty of time to get this removed from his record, is what I'm saying.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
what's written in the application,
Right.
which was submitted well before this hearing,
Yes.
shows in the application offense description,
Yeah.
the explanation why, and the additional interview information.
Right.
All of those things talk to the remorse and exactly what the victims in this case are asking for.
Right.
It's not like he's here and there's 3 victims and he's changing a story. When this application was submitted some 6 months ago,
Mhm.
the sentiment is contained within the application.
Right.
I think that I thank you, Mr. Poole, for that. I don't think that I'm not saying that I don't believe that he's genuinely sincere about his remorse for his actions. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it happening this way, the way that it is right now, it would appear that it's insincere. It's like you're doing this now. You're going to connect with these victims now because they've said what they've said. That's where the insincerity comes in. I'm not. There's no doubt he was emotional. He spoke to, the fact that he's changed these people's lives forever. He's laid it all out, and I understand it, and I appreciate all that he's doing and have done. However, I still believe that he can wait to come back. That's me, and it's just
Yeah.
my
Okay. So I got your vote. This is a very unique situation because we generally don't continue cases. It's almost like a contingency that has never been done before, but I'm willing to do it in this case. And I'm not saying that I would necessarily deny the case today either, but if we can get find some resolution for everyone, then I'd rather do that. Okay. So in the matter of Ryan Tapp, I'll make a motion to continue the case for, let's see, how much time do we need? I'll ask the victim representative that we have here today. What would you recommend?
Well, I know some of the victims live out of state.
Okay.
And one is currently out of the country. So I'm not quite sure, obviously, a few months, just because.
Let's call it 3 months. We're going to continue this case for 3 months. What month are we in? January, February, March, April. We'll continue the case until April. We'll put it on the April doc and see how far we can get. And as I said, I would request that the MAD representative please send us something in writing to attach to the file so we're aware of what happened. Mr. Pohl.
Aye.
Ms. Berry.
Aye.
My vote is aye. The case is continued to April. It's a majority decision with Ms. Berry dissenting in favor of a denial. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
All right, I'm going to share some information with you that's going to, I don't know, it's just, I think it's only going to muddy the waters more and not bring clarity. But to start with, it certainly is interesting that he shows zero empathy, does not say one word of apology at his hearing when he does his opening statement. And keep in mind, this was his second opportunity. Also, taking it on your cell phone, walking around, the whole thing, it doesn't seem like you're taking it that seriously. And the victims, really all they're asking for is they just want him to act like he apologizes. Now, on the offset of that, when he stated that his attorney told him not to, I do believe him. When he was able to describe the injuries that the woman had, that did send a message to me that he actually did know, and that he wrote the Facebook messages and didn't send it. I do believe him. I do believe all of that. But it is strange that he didn't just say an apology in the opening statement. Now, it's also interesting that they're giving like the 3-month timeline. So we will come back if we see him in 3 months. We will play it. Check the playlist for pardons if you want to keep track of this. Service does a really good job of doing that. Now, to add the different parts of this or confusion to this, one is that in this article written right after the accident, it actually states that no one was hurt except for him. And it's possible that the independent writer didn't do their homework, but it was written on the after him giving a presentation about the injury, and that is disingenuous. It sends red flags. Again, he didn't write it. It was an independent writer. Who knows what information she got, but it actually goes out of its way to state that he was the only one hurt, and that's sketchy. But it was written in 2011. Let me just show you. Randy Tapp remembers the last thing his wife said. This is his parents talking. to her underage son as he walked out the door New Year's Eve. They said to his son, "Good choices," she reminded him as he headed for a party with friends. And he said, "Don't worry." Now, Randy Tapp recalled he sent us a text message at midnight saying Happy New Year. Then we got the phone call at 4:30 a.m. that no parent wants to get. And this is terrifying. Ryan Tapp's life was forever altered that night. You see that Ryan Tapp's life was forever altered that night when he drove his SUV down the wrong way of I-84 after partying with his friends. "No one ever knew I left," said Tapp, 24 at the time, Cheshire high school graduate and ex-Marine reservist. 5 people were hurt when Tapp's SUV slammed head-on into a car, then crashed into another at 3 a.m. on January 2008. Tapp, the only one severely injured, suffered a traumatic brain injury and wasn't expected to make it through the night. After 3 weeks in a coma, months of rehabilitation, and 9 months in prison, Tapp now speaks around the state about the consequences of drinking and driving. So he shared his story with the Cheshire community Wednesday night at the town council members' 5th annual Alcohol Awareness Week. Tapp said he started drinking regularly when he was a sophomore in high school. He said he did it all because my friends did it. I'm the prime example of it's not going to happen to me. That's what I always thought. Tapp said, "Thank God I didn't kill anyone for all the times I drank and drove." And as you can see, they were severely hurt and no one knows about it. And it makes you wonder now, is it because of what he went through? I just don't know. I mean, he did go through a lot. They thought he wouldn't be able to walk again and all those things. And good for him for taking these programs. But again, it does make me wonder. But then there's something else that I need to share with you, which is pretty scary, in my opinion. And that is that when he said he nearly shot himself, he did shoot himself. Sir Richard found this. Wendy Tapp, the mother of 19-year-old Ryan Tapp, who shot himself with a handgun in 2011. So this would have been, I think, with the same year that he had the crash, probably after the crash. Now, again, this shows signs of remorse, and I think at least, I mean, it could have been for who knows why, but it's scary when you're giving a pardon. And see, in Louisiana, they have 2 types of pardons. They have a pardon, and then they have pardon with restoration of firearm. Now, Louisiana, it's very easy to get a gun. You probably just walk into a store and buy it. While in Connecticut, it's really difficult to get a gun. It's a very long process. And in Connecticut, actually, they reserve the right to refuse your application without even telling you why. They can just say, "No, we don't want to give you the application," even if you check all the boxes. So Connecticut's not exactly a Second Amendment friendly state. And, you know, I guess they'll leave it up to whoever's in charge of making those decisions if he does get the pardon. Then there's something else, 2 things, which is a little, I don't have context outside of this that Sir Richard found, but it's by Ryan and says, so he's writing a testimony for reasons of allowing guns on Sunday or something. So eliminating all restrictions for Sunday hunting. And he writes, "I want to be able to go hunting on the days I have off, and Saturdays isn't enough. Hunting is a full weekend for people who work their life like me." And again, I don't know when this was written, so it's hard to, if this was written after his accident, was it written before? Then he does it again, another addressing gun violence. Testimony: "I wish to raise my children with hunting and gun safety, the way I was raised and trained in the Marines." This makes me think it was recently because he has children and it's after the Marines. So I would say after his accident. So again, it's I don't know. It seems like maybe he's not running on a full set. I don't know. And then you have, lastly, this was the article written from his last pardon hearing, which took place in 2017. So we heard from her, right? She's talking about her injuries. And she was very upset that she never got an apology at this hearing that happened in 2017. And I don't know, you would just think that he would have made a point to give an apology. But I don't know. This one, I don't think there's any clarity on it. If all they want is, and he did seem genuine to me when at the end, maybe he just made a mistake by not mentioning it. Maybe he's a little, I don't know. What do you think? Anyways, we'll bring back the case and see what they do in 3 months. It is very interesting. They really do want to hand out these pardons. Also, if you like seeing these pardon hearings, let me know. I can bring more of them to you. So let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, I'll just stop doing it, right? If you don't think it's worth showing. With that, I'll let you go.
So
basically,
the officer here called you and said,
yes.
this is what your application says. And you say, no, that's not true.
No, the
pastor
first,
messed up my application.
No, the first situation, as far as it was with the cat, but the second situation is when she grabbed the cat by the throat. That's when, how can I say, like, when you discipline her, like discipline a child, I discipline her, but the wrong way.